Michael Lombardi is here. He announced last week that he's no longer doing back-to-backs. Oh, no, that was Joel Embiid. My bad. I
Wait,
forgot.
why did that take an announcement? Like, why did that take an announcement? Like, why did that take a press release out there? Like, seriously, like, did anybody think he was playing back to back?
No,
I mean,
it's all about the playoffs now. It's all
it's all
about
about let's
getting in
just
shape,
basically
marrying Tim Duncan,
he's
trying to
the
win
Walt
titles.
Disney of the NBA. We're going to freeze his body until we open it up in April. He's the Walt Disney of the NBA.
Well, we're going to talk football first, and then at the
All
end, I'll
right.
let you rant about the Sixers. You're a big identity guy with football teams.
Yeah.
I've learned this from you, especially when we get to mid-October when basketball is about to start. Who are we? It's week 7. It's week 8. Who are we? What are we trying to
Right.
do? What are we trying to be? And I think you and I are both really bullish on the Lions. I thought it was weird the first 3 weeks when, they ran like 100 million plays in those 2 games and didn't score enough points. They did some weird red zone stuff. And it was like, I know who these guys are. They're going to figure it out. That is a team to me that even with Hutchinson out has an identity. But when you think about like the teams that actually have identities that have a chance to go far in the playoffs, how many teams is that?
Oh, it's really few. I think this is one year. That's why Survivor was so bad for most people. There's really not a dominating team here. I think Detroit got kicked in the teeth when they threw it 53 times and let Goff do that against Tampa and lost. I think Campbell said, "Okay, wait a minute, we're not doing that shit no more." But I think there's very few teams that have it. San Francisco does. If we're talking the NFC, I think Green Bay's starting to get their identity now. I really think they're
Oh, what is
becoming
it? Tell me what it is.
it is big playability. It's explosive offense. They've scored 90 points in the first half. I mean, you can't cover them. They can run with more power and they can turn the ball over defensively. They've been able to create some turnovers. So they're tough to play. They're an offensive controlled team where the quarterback can throw the ball really well on the third level. I mean, Dobbs made 2 plays last week. They're outstanding.
Oh,
So I
and
think
Watson came back. Speaking of
and
injury
Watson
prone
came back.
guys, why
Right.
we might have Watson for like 3 weeks here.
So I think Minnesota has an identity. I think Minnesota's the identity is a little confused by most people. They think it's their offense. I think Minnesota's defense is their identity. They're hard to run the ball on. They're
Yeah.
impossible to run the ball on. They rush the passer and they create negative plays by the offense. And they're good enough on offense with the scheme and the coaching to be able to function. So I think that's their identity. San Francisco, we know what their identity. They're going to run the football. They're going to play action. They're going to run after the catch, although they're not doing that as well this year. But that's their identity. The team I don't know what has an identity is Philadelphia. I don't know what to do with Philly. They're 4-10 over the last games. They haven't scored a point in the first quarter, even though they have the second coming of Sid Gilman coaching offense for them and Kellen Moore. They haven't scored a point in the first quarter. And they haven't scored over 21 points since the opening game. Think about that now.
Yeah.
I know they have the greatest coach in the history of football. If you just read any of the analytical reports on offensive coordinators, he's by far the greatest coach of all time. But they don't have an identity. I don't know who they are.
Well,
And
it
yet
seems
they
like
got
they
really
should
good.
be. They should be. We have these 2 awesome receivers and this explosive running back, and we should be really unpredictable offensively. And you take care of these 2 things. This third thing's going to get you. You're never good, right? But
Right.
that's not their identity at all. When I watch them,
No,
I'm
they're
like,
they're
what the fuck
trying
are
to
these
make
guys doing?
Jalen Hurts the star of the show when he should be the commensurate piece. He should be the auxiliary piece. He
Yeah.
should be he should be the nice tie to the suit. He's not shouldn't be the suit, right? And so like they should run it, they should play action pass, he should be under center more, but yet they keep trying to focus on him and Brown and Smith are the great players on the outside with Goddard inside. I mean, this is a team and a good offensive line. I mean, they have talent like Detroit does, but they
Yeah.
don't do what Detroit does.
2 other teams on this identity thing. I know you're in on the Chiefs knowing who they are, and that
Right.
they had that come to Jesus moment after the Christmas whatever day that was against the Raiders last year when they were like, you know what? It's defense, ball control. Let's just try to win some 20-17 games, and that's who we have to be this year. Now in 2024. Somehow their defense is better than their offense. And it's funny because Mahomes is like on FanDuel, he's the MVP favorite still, I think.
Yeah,
And
but
he's
how is
definitely not the MVP of the Chiefs this year. We know how great he is,
he's
but
not even a top 5 quarterback this year.
yeah.
Now he's still a great player. I'm not dismissing that, but he's not having a Patrick Mahomes type year that you would say, boy, that guy's an MVP. But I agree. I think that they know they have to win. They have problems at receiver. Their two tackles, Taylor, who has created another position, which is a wing tackle, where he can line up in the backfield. He's a wing
Right.
tackle, not an
It's a
offensive tackle.
fullback slash right tackle. Okay.
Yeah, he's a wing tackle, and the left tackle really struggles. But Andy knows his deficiencies, so he works around them.
Yeah.
That's the key to football, right? And I think that's really important. Whereas if you look at some of these other teams, like the Cincinnati Bengals, who won't acknowledge their weaknesses, and my man's throwing it on every single down, and he's wondering why his quarterback's getting a
Yeah.
crappy.
Houston's interesting to me. Joe House was saying this after Mixon got hurt, that it screwed them up because they kind of wanted to be a power rushing team that could also throw the ball, and then Mixon went out. And then Collins went out, but Mixon came back, and they're playing Green Bay that I don't think we're gonna get. Houston's 5-1, so it's worked out great for them so far. But whatever Houston team we're getting, big picture ceiling wise, I feel like we're not gonna know until December. I want to see
Yeah,
Collins back. I want to see Mixon healthy. I want to see how they can mix those two elements, but it's gonna take a while, right?
right. Well, Mixon, they rushed for 200 yards in the opener, right?
Yeah,
Against the Colts, against my man Gussie Bradley's defense. And then last week they rushed for what, 193? I mean, Mixon
yeah,
makes a difference. But here's the interesting thing about Houston. They have no receiver on their team that averages over 10 yards a catch. I mean, I think
right without Collins. Yeah,
except for Collins. I mean, Tank Dell's at 9.7 yards. Dalton Schultz is at 7.8. I think Diggs is at 10.3 or something like that. He was well below 10 until last week. They're not explosive as an offense. And unless Mixon's in there, they really can't run the ball. And Stroud isn't as good as we've made him out to be. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong.
really? What is this a zag against Stroud? What's the
No,
case?
I think when you look at his numbers, and I mean, look, you just look at the analytical numbers on him.
Yeah,
He doesn't rank into the top on expected completions and all those things. He's not in the top five of any of those categories. I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. But I think on the road, I think he struggles. Look, I mean, last year they went into Carolina and lost. He was a rookie. I get that. But I think when he went up to Minnesota, they didn't play very well in that game. And Minnesota's defense really, I think a lot of this is you have to handicap teams. I think the fourth quarter is the most critical quarter to handicap. It's like if I worked in basketball, I would only study the fourth
crunch
quarter.
time. Yeah.
Just study the last 8 minutes of a game and when it's a close game. And it's the same thing in football. If you don't study the fourth quarter, you really don't know. You don't have any idea about when you have to throw it, can you throw it? When you have to run it, can you run it? When you have to stop it, can you stop it?
One other team that I think has an identity, and I don't think people realize it yet, and I could tell by with the Chargers Cardinals line this week is the Chargers, because
Yeah.
I think their defense is legit good. I think Harbaugh knows who he wants them to be. There's only
Right.
6 coaches that matter anymore. He's one of them, right? Herbert's been hurt the whole year. They've been trying to figure out the receiver piece of things. Dobbins been a little better. They had this guy Vidal, who's this little shutterbug dude that I actually think with Gus Edwards out could become a factor. But I'm watching them because I think their ceiling might be a little higher than people realize. They're just like the annoying 10-17. That's every game they're going to pull the other team into what they want to do. You know what I mean?
And every game they're going to become closer to his personality, which is
Yeah.
highly competitive. And that's what you saw last week. Like they were a 3-point favorite against the Broncos, and I thought that was too low. I thought they were the better team, and I thought one of the things in that game, Herbert was finally healthy. We saw Herbert play really well, and I think
Yeah.
that was important. So to me, I agree. They're good on defense. They're Here's the thing too. I think one of the key elements of last week was you could see the teams that are getting better and the teams that don't practice. Right. So we have an
Yeah.
element. So now we're in this world of we have to rest players to get them ready. That we don't want to have any practice. We just want to get to the game. And so you're seeing like the Harbaughs. Their teams are going to get better. The Chiefs. That team's going to get better. Detroit's going to get better because they're going to practice and they're going to get better. Whereas you see like New England's best game was the opening game. That was their best game. They've gotten worse every single week because they're probably not practicing to the level you need to practice. They're worried about injuries. And Carolina's another example. I mean, they're actually getting worse if it's possible. They don't practice. You can see they miss more tackles in the open field. One of the things Washington has done is they practice. They've gotten better. They got beat last week, but they're getting better. They're not any good on defense, but they're getting better.
I agree with 90% of that, but it doesn't explain why the Jaguars aren't better. Because I
They
know
don't
they
practice.
practice super. Oh, no, wait. They're terrible too. They don't practice either.
Yeah, they don't practice. I mean, that's the whole thing with Dougie. I mean, they're so soft. They
Yeah.
have no physicality. They have no identity. He'll call. I mean, he'll just keep calling passes, and he'll keep checking them off. When you text me this week after that, you nailed it. That was their best drive. They weren't going to score another point after that drive. That they laid it all out there. That was it. They ran out of offense.
Right. He had like his sixth place. He was going in. So this identity discussion is fun because of what the Jets just did. So the Jets, who got their ass kicked by Buffalo, right? Buffalo, anytime Buffalo really needed to make a big play or get a third down, they got it. The Jets come out of that game and they're like, you know what? We need Devontae Adams.
Yeah, that would have been the
if we
last
can only
thing
have
I
one
would
more
thought.
receiver, we could have stopped Josh Allen. Like what? What? Did you watch the game? And
Of
you
course,
can't
I
block.
watched the game.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying the Jets. Like, and they can't block. It's like, cool,
Well,
you got another receiver. You still can't block. You still can't get stops on defense. What is the point?
Let me ask you a question. What is the end game for the Jets? Like, what is their end game? I mean, I know they got great pub on this, and Aaron's happy, and everybody's all happy.
Oh, good.
But,
I'm glad Aaron's happy. I'm glad their
yeah,
40-year-old
but
QB
what's
is
their
getting the
end
shit
game?
kicked out of him is happy.
What's their end game? Like, if they get is a good season a wild card? Is a good season the conference champ? Like, what is their end game? Because next year they're a disaster.
Well, if we were hanging out, if we were buddies with Woody Johnson, we were playing poker with him, and we're just telling him what he wants to hear, we would say, hey, if your kicker had made a couple kicks, you guys would be 4-2. Like, why can't you
Right.
make the Super Bowl? That would be the case, right? You're
Right.
you're basically 3 shit kicks away from being 4-2.
Right. That's
I don't
right.
agree with that because I don't think they're a
either.
4-2 team. And I don't, I think it's kind of shocking how inconsistent their defense is, but I guess it makes sense.
No, I mean, but they're another team. Like, are they going to keep like Rodgers? Is he going to stand up in November or December? He gets a crap beat out of him.
Also, if you screw up, Rodgers has entered this LeBron zone where if you're a teammate and you don't do well by him or you make a mistake,
Yeah.
it's like the spotlight. Like now Mike Williams is the worst receiver in the league.
Yeah,
It's like, I'm pretty sure Mike Williams is pretty good receiver. Okay, maybe he should have cut 4 yards over on that one play, but now he fucking sucks and he's got to be run out of town.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Now they're trying to trade him. They'll give him away. He may go back to the Chargers. I'm sure Pittsburgh's probably interested. There's a bunch of teams interested, but
Right.
he's as good as gone. I mean, he's as good as gone off the Jets.
I would think.
Yeah. And so because Devontae replaced him, Lassard now moves to the third receiver, even though he made they scored 20 points, but 7 of them came on a Hail Mary. I mean, like, let's be clear here. Todd Dowling didn't electrify the offensive team here. Like, this wasn't like, oh my God, they scored 13 points basically.
Yeah, they got Brees going in the first quarter, and that was really the only thing. And I say that as somebody who has Brees and Garrett Wilson on multiple fantasy teams. That was the only thing that felt different. And then Buffalo shut that down. What's the Buffalo identity to you other than we have Josh Allen?
Well, I think Buffalo can run the ball. I think they have changed their identity. I think they went from being an 11 team to where they were going to throw it all the time, like Cincinnati. When Cincinnati came into Buffalo 2 years ago and kicked the shit out of them, I think they had a wake up call. I think they said, you know what? They finally realized they play in Western New York. Like, it's cold, it's windy, it's bad. We're not going to win with just this offense. And so I think they can run the ball. I mean, that first drive of the Jet game, they just ran it down their throat, 7 runs. I mean, right down. I think their identity is we're going to run the ball. We're going to control the clock. We're going to be a nickel defense. We're going to give up runs, but we're going to be able to, if we play from in front, we'll be a good team. I'm not sure they're good enough, but they have the best player. I mean, he is truly, if he gets this team to the East and into the playoffs deep, he's the MVP of the league because he's got him on his back. And I tell you this, and I didn't think he could. Coming out, I just was worried about his accuracy, but he has improved that. But he's so goddamn hard to tackle, and he's just such a good playmaker. I mean, he just does things on that second play that you can't coach.
Is there a TJ Watt case, or is the defensive player just never winning
MVP? I said that today on my show. I think TJ Watt deserves to get the MVP of the league. I mean, it's not enough to give him defensive player of the year. It's like, I mean, you can't. I mean, you go in the game saying we got to block TJ Watt, and then TJ Watt creates 2 fumbles. I mean, I don't know what Antonio Pierce was thinking, but clearly, he destroyed the game.
So I bring that up because at least on FanDuel, he's 200 to 1 to win the MVP. And I would say if you just watch football this year, he's been the player that's jumped out of the television the most every single game. He's
Yeah.
completely, and he's getting double teamed. They'll show replays. You're like, how did he do that? He's made more plays that didn't count because there were like stupid flags that called like a fumble back. And I think he's having one of the best defensive player years that we've seen. Pittsburgh's not very good. They got one
No.
receiver. Their offensive line's a freaking mess. Fields has been awful the last 2 weeks. They're losing guys on defense. I feel like Watt's like carrying them. They're 4-2, and I would say he's the number one, number two, number three reason.
He is the reason. I mean, look, he has 2 strip fumbles he had last week, one of them in the goal line.
Right.
And then he strips the ball out of midfield where he punches the ball out. I mean, and to me, he separates himself from everybody else. Like Micah Parsons is a really good player, but Micah doesn't dominate like this guy does. Not this year, he hasn't dominated. Not like that. I mean, Micah's good, but the Lawrence Taylor comparisons might be a little extreme. You might want to stop that. But to me, this TJ guy, he is really a messing machine. And I think they beat Dallas. If they would have had Nate Herbig on the other side.
Yeah. He came out in that Dallas midway through the Dallas game. Yeah.
He got hurt with a hamstring, and that's why Dallas won the game. I think that little thing told you, Dallas isn't really any good. I mean, let's be clear. They're not even in this conversation.
No. The TJ Watt piece, you're a big history guy, as am I. Who's the doppelganger? What kind of pool is he swimming in right now? Big picture historically.
Man, he is, because he's so unique as a rusher. Like he's different than Bruce Smith because he doesn't play on the end of the line, but he's as dominating as Bruce Smith was when Bruce Smith was going good. I mean, you had to take him out of the game. Bruce Smith was over. This kid's in a 3-point. And the thing about TJ Watt is it's really kind of interesting for young players to study him. He only has one pass rush move. That's all he has. But you can't stop it. He just knows how to do it, and you can't really handle it. It's just the same move all the time. You know it's coming, but you can't handle it. So like coming from the outside, those 34 backers, I mean, he is truly an outside backer, but he puts his hand in the dirt. I'm not saying he's Lawrence Taylor, but he's in the way of dominating the game the way Taylor did. He really has. I mean, he deserves votes for the MVP. You can't give it to Mahomes. You can't give it to any of those quarterbacks that haven't played at a high level. I mean, Jaden Daniels is playing better than most of them.
Yeah, Lamar and Stroud are number 2 and 3 right now. What basketball player is TJ Watt?
Basketball player is TJ Watt.
One move that's unstoppable, relentless.
To me, he's kind of like got a little bit of Barkley in his game. You wouldn't think he could be as good
I like
as
that.
he is. He wouldn't be as good because of his size. He's not that intimidating. He's not, he's playing power forward at 6'4.5" like Barkley did, but yet he can dominate the game like Barkley did. To me, that's kind of, and he's got such unique. Barkley to me was so good because he had incredible balance. Barkley was never on the wrong foot when he jumped. He was always able to be in balance. This kid's always in balance. It's an untold scouting thing when you're watching really good players is, are they in balance? Are they able to jump in a balanced situation? And this kid can do it. He's really remarkable. That's a great question. I think to me, he's an undersized guy at the position that he dominates in, even though he's not a small player, but he
No,
plays
I know what you mean.
bigger.
No, I think you nailed it. I think Barkley's a good one for that. Is there a young pass rusher that you feel like is the next guy? Obviously, Parsons is already there, so you can't say him.
I thought Hutchinson's that young guy. I think Hutchinson's really has. I think to me, if I'm Jacksonville, I'm a little bit embarrassed I took Travion Walker over Hutch.
A little.
Yeah, I mean, because this is a kid who's proven he's getting better and he likes it, and he's going to keep getting better. He's got such good rush moves. I'll tell you, Hendrickson. Now, I thought Hendrickson last week against the Giants, I thought something was wrong with Andrew Thomas because he never gets beat that bad like he did in that game.
Yeah.
And you just had to think he was hurt. And of course, now he comes out with the foot injury that he tried to play through the Liz Frank. But to me, he's really good as well. These guys, when you have to, it's one thing to say we're going to chip on the guy. Like everybody wants to chip on TJ, but it looks good on a blackboard, but it doesn't come to fruition.
I actually don't like the Russell Wilson move for them this week. I thought they should have waited a week on it.
Well, I don't like it for this reason because Russell refuses to work into the pocket. So one of the things that, what you've got to be able to do is that if you're going to run like Fields, you got to be able to run away from. This is what Caleb Williams is learning in the NFL, that I can run away from at USC. I can't run away from in the NFL. Well, Russell can't run away from anybody, and he won't work the vertical level in the pocket. So that's a real issue for him. And then to me, I think Fields, even though he's not, I think Fields has improved from Chicago, but he's not there. He's not.
He
He's
was
not.
bad last week.
He was bad, and he's too inconsistent. You can't. I'm sure Mike's probably saying we just can't. We can't get enough consistency. But I think, look, if you're Pittsburgh, you're probably saying we got to figure out what we have with Russell, right? Because we have no quarterback next year.
Right. Well, they play the Jets this week. And I
Then they
thought,
play New York Giants the week after. They have the New York special. So
right.
they're going to try to find out one way or the other. I mean, look, this is a must win for the Jets. I mean,
oh, yeah.
If they can't beat Pittsburgh with that offense, Pittsburgh, I can't see Russell being dynamic in that offense. I really can't.
Well, if they lose this game, then Mike Williams gets the Tony Soprano call.
Yeah.
He's like, Mike, Aaron Rodgers overdosed. Silvio's going to come pick you up.
No,
what? Okay, I'll go to the hospital.
Woody will make another trade. He'll have to make another trade. I mean, only Woody could say thinking is overrated. Here's a guy who's won 34% of his games since 2010, and he thinks thinking is overrated. Maybe you might want to think a little bit.
Do you think Adriana knew when Silvio was picking her up?
No, I don't think she.
You don't think she knew until it was like halfway in the car ride?
I think it's one of the greatest scenes ever. I think she knew when he started to drive. I love how Stevie Van Zant's talking to her, trying to reassure her.
Chris is going to be okay. He's going to be okay.
And the music they played, I can't find that song that they played, like Leaving Los Angeles, it's called. I thought that was such a great song that they played in the background. But long-term parking has got to be in the top 5 of Sopranos.
Oh, no question. Season 5, I think, is my favorite. That's where I've landed. I think it's the best start to finish.
Yeah.
Best written, deepest. There's the most like subtle shit going on. And it has two of the best episodes ever.
I think you're right about Tony B, because I think Tony B was more complex than Ralphie. He was more complex than Richie. Richie was a straight gangster.
Yeah, he was a cartoon.
You knew where he was coming from. And Ralphie was just a little bit too fucked up. But Tony B was devious. He was devious.
Well, also the fact that all the stuff that he was also named Tony, he was the alternate way Tony's life could have gone. Yeah. He was kind of the worst version of Tony and all these different ways. Anyway, we could talk about Sopranos forever. All right, playoff picture. This is right around the time you can really steal a couple playoff teams with good odds. Right? Like the Jets right now are 2-4 plus 136 to make the playoffs on FanDuel. And it's like, all right, if you think the Jets are going to rally and beat Pittsburgh this week, this is the week to take them. There's also some long shot stuff like Denver's 3-3. They're plus 265. The AFC sucks. Like it's basically 5 teams and then God only knows. Then on the other side, you're looking at the NFC where there's teams where the odds seem out of whack, like Philly's minus 235 to make the playoffs. I don't feel good about that at all. Green Bay's only minus 164. Seattle's plus 225 with a really winnable game this week. So it's all over the map. I wanted to go through and just hit teams, and you tell me, do you mentally have them in the playoffs already? So KC 5-0, I assume yes.
Yes.
Houston 5-1, winning the AFC South. Wait, is there any way that doesn't happen now?
I think, Indy's going to play Richardson this week. Seriously, there's no telling him with Bradley's defense. They can't ever get control of the game. How does Houston not win it? We don't even know if Doug's going to make it back from London, this week. So, where are they going? And Tennessee, Tennessee's a comedy, really. To continue to play Will Levis at this point. I get it if you have to play the guy you draft him second overall in the draft. I get that, right? But you drafted this clown the second round. You have no real investment in him. And he keeps costing you games and you keep putting him out there. That's on you. That's not on the kid. Like, I don't blame. That's just ridiculous.
So you wouldn't trade Vrabel for Will Levis and Callahan if you had to do it over again?
I would have traded Vrabel for Rand Carthon and Will Levis. I would have made that deal. I would have made that deal. I would have said no. But Rand Carthon won that battle. He won it. And, oh, by the way, Jamal Adams wanted his release. Of course, they signed him and he can't play. Like, he's going to get anyway. So what's Houston's competition? You can eliminate Tennessee. You can eliminate Indy. Indy's not going to really go anywhere with the way they're going. I mean,
Yeah.
Indy's going to play Miami with the DJ. He's going to spin some records this week, and I got to think he's got a chance to win that game if he spins the right records. I mean, why not?
DJ Mikey Mack he's got what he had the bye week last week, so he's had
He had
2
a lot of
weeks. He was
time to
in the
tune up.
studio.
He probably went to the record store, bought himself a bunch of new albums. He's going to spin some shit in there.
Put
I
some
can't
techno
wait.
beats.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see. I mean, he doesn't win. This is a must-win for him.
Yeah. No, it is. Their season's over. I think their season's over anyway. I think they stink. I didn't think they were a playoff team before they had all the injuries because I thought that Buffalo game in week 2, when they were getting their ass kicked, it was like, this isn't a playoff team. What are we doing?
Yeah,
So
he kept spinning albums in that game. He didn't even change the music sheet. So I I think Miami could win that game. I don't know if I want to take that Miami in the game because every time I take Miami,
now that's a stay away.
He kills me. But who else is Houston's competition?
Nobody. So Casey and Houston, we're put them in. I just think Baltimore 4-2. They're just too good offensively.
Yeah, they are.
And they can stop the run. And they're built, when it gets colder, it'll be good for them. Lamar is amazing. Even this
Tucker's
week.
made more kicks. Tucker got his act going a little bit better, which helps. And bringing in Dean Peace will help their defense.
Yeah.
They needed that, right? Zach Orr was 3 years as a coach. I said it this summer when we talked. He's not ready to be a defensive coordinator. It's just he just on Sunday, it just happens too quick. I think bringing Dean in really helped. And one thing, again, you talk about team getting better. This offensive line from week 1 to where they are now, much better, much improved, right? And they're just
the Derrick Henry piece. Who, I mean, he's another guy. We did TJ Watt. Like, what is the Derrick Henry doppelganger historically? This is basically if Earl Campbell had just played for 12 years, right?
It's remarkable how he doesn't ever get tired. I mean, he's Chuck Foreman with the size of Chuck Foreman, with the power of Earl Campbell. I mean, and he's got 8 touchdowns rushing already. He's Mariano Rivera. He can close it out. So he's got, and the thing about him that makes him so important to Baltimore, it forces Baltimore to have an identity. It forces Baltimore to not stray and go down, we want to start throwing this thing. It forces them to give the ball to okay, we got to feed the monster here. And so I think Baltimore could be the best team if they fix that secondary. If they make a move like Buffalo did to get Rasul Douglas last year, if they make a move to get another corner, I think they could really improve their defense. And if they and Zach's got some help now defensively, I think they're the best team.
The Henry, it's really nice when teams make trades. That's great for them, but also great for the player. And I feel like he was just kind of buried the last 2 years, right? We had almost was hitting that Larry Fitzgerald in Arizona after he lost Carson Palmer point, where it's just like, is this guy even good anymore? I have no idea.
But
and he's good.
Here's the thing, though, Bill. Here's what drives you crazy. People say, "Well, we couldn't afford him on the cap." Well, I mean, Jerry Jones says that, right? Well, you gave Brandon Cooks $12 million. You made a choice to keep Brandon Cooks. You didn't want Henry. Like, you have choices. We all make choices. Just when you make the wrong choice, it really magnifies. It's like them saying that the Giants, we don't want Barkley. We don't have money to sign Barkley. Well, you overpaid for Lumino, or you re-signed Van Note. Those two signal. That was the $3 million you didn't have.
Right.
You gave it away. You made choices. And so Baltimore's choice of signing Henry, it was the perfect guy. And I think it really works better because this offensive line is so young that they needed to kind of grow into it, and they're getting better.
Perfect team for him. Buffalo would be the 4th playoff team. 4-2.
I have no faith in Buffalo defensively. I really don't. I think, to me, they could get pushed around and bullied. But I have all the faith in the world in Josh Allen.
I guess my thing with them is they already have 4 wins. And if you go through the rest of the schedule, I just don't see how they don't get to 10.
Well, they have Will Levis. What quarter do you think will throw him on?
Right. So they'll be 5-2 after this week. And then they would have to go 5-6 the rest of the way just to get to 10.
Who's going to beat them again? I mean, Miami's going to play them up in Buffalo late in the year. I mean, the Jets, you think they're going? I mean, Rodgers, by that time of the year, his body's going to be old, and that offensive line for the Jets ain't getting better. I can tell you that.
So it's 10 wins the AFC East, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And I don't think the Jets can get to 10 wins. So Buffalo would have to go 9-8, and that would mean that they would have to go 4-6 the rest of the way. And I just don't see that unless Josh Allen got hurt. So I'm putting them in. So that leaves 4 spots left. Pittsburgh's 4-2. They're minus 142. Chargers 3-2. They're minus 152. Cincy's 2-4 plus 106. Indy's in there. The Jets, Denver, Jags. Is there anybody that you would say, I think I have these guys in? Because for me, I think it's the Chargers.
I
I,
definitely think it's
I
the
don't feel
Chargers
awesome about it, but I think I feel the best about them about anybody.
What you're looking for is a team that is going to constantly improve during the year. I don't know if it's Denver. I mean, tonight we'll see what Denver does. I mean, their favorite, New Orleans, is beat up. They'd have nobody
Yeah.
really healthy. They should win this to get to 4-3. But, I think to me, Cincy would be the only team that you would say, if they improve, if they get better, they did last week against the Giants defensively, which is not saying a lot against the Giants. But to me, that would be the one. Like, to me, Cincy's better than Indy. Cincy's better than Pittsburgh in terms of their total team, the talent they have on offense. Cincy's got to play better defensively.
The problem is they have 4 losses already. They're at Cleveland this week, which is now, I think, a must win because I think 2-5, there's no coming back. For road games, and they have 4 losses already, they're at Baltimore still. They're at the Chargers. They're at Dallas. They're at Tennessee. They're at Pittsburgh, plus the Cleveland game. Like, there's not a lot of room for error anymore. They still have Pittsburgh at home. They have Cleveland at home, Denver at home. They got Philly at home. And they would have to go, I think, 8-3.
They got to go 8-3. Yeah, they got to go 8-3. They got to get it together. And they can go 8-3. They're good enough offensively. But to me, I worry about them. I worry about how they don't really play with any physicality. Everything's on Burrow. The offensive line isn't as good as it needs to be. They really at right tackle. Mims, the rookie's a good player, but he's a rookie. They're to me.
Were you stunned that Trent Brown got hurt?
Oh, we knew that. He's so happy.
I hope you were sitting down when you got that news.
I mean, I love Trent Brown. If he wanted to play, he'd be great. He doesn't want to play. He does. I mean, he could be one of the best left tackles in football. He just has no interest in being a left tackle.
One thing with the Bengals, I like gravitating toward teams that you look at them and you go, oh, they can definitely do that. Those 2 receivers with Burrow, and when they have Chase Brown back there instead of Moss, and I know Chase Brown can't block, but at least there's like speed and you're making decisions on defense. You're giving up something.
You don't want to play him. I mean, Indy doesn't want to play him. They'll put 400 on Gussie. So they don't want to play him. I mean, they're a good team. They're a really good team. They've got a lot of stuff going. And I think, to me, if they can just get better defensively. Look, the Baltimore game was embarrassing. I know they had a players-only meeting, but that was embarrassing. I mean, now Mike Hilton back last week in the slot corner helped them in the run fits. It really helped them, but they've got to get better. I mean, but they can do it. Look, if the Jets can do it, why couldn't Cincy's better than the Jets to me?
Right. Well, I think
Cincy can legitimately score 30. Everybody thinks the Jets can score 30. I'm not sure about that. They haven't yet.
Rodgers hasn't thrown for 300 yards since, I think, COVID.
Right.
I think you have to get to 10 wins. I don't think the Jets can do it. I'm not ruling out Cincy going 8-3. Pittsburgh's already 4-2 with this Jets-Giants combo. And if they win those and they're 6-2, now you basically have to go 4-5 the last 9 games.
Even if they go 5-3, they're going to get to a wild card. I mean, he's just too good of a coach, and they know who they are.
So they have their home games. They got Baltimore and KC left. On the road, they have Washington, Cleveland, Cincy, Philly, and Baltimore left for those last 9. So it's definitely a harder schedule. Let me make the Denver case for you. I know you're in on Sean, just in general, and I heard you say about how there's so few good head coaches anymore that the good head coaches we have now, it's an even bigger advantage than it was 30 years ago. I completely agree because you can see it on the TVs with the teams where the sideline's locked in, where they're doing smart things, where it's like, hey, it's 4th and 4 on the 10. Maybe I'll just kick a field goal here and take 3 points. How about that idea?
Yeah,
it's going to be a 20-17 game. I might need
Andy
the 3
Reid's
points.
Won more Super Bowls than any coach in the league, and he's only gone for it 3 times on 4th down. But he kicks field goals, and nobody wants to copy Andy. Like nobody wants to copy it. Just take the points.
Yeah, no, don't listen to him. But Denver's got their next 2 is at New Orleans tonight, and then Carolina. So they could be 5-3. A week and a half from now. They still have for home games Cleveland. God only knows who's playing quarterback that week. Indianapolis, Atlanta, and then week 18 KC, who
Right.
could literally have nothing to play for, right?
Right.
So they might, just with the games I mentioned, have
I
9
see them as a
wins.
I see them as a 9 and 8. Not look, they're good on defense. Don't ever really.
Yeah.
They're good on defense. If they stay healthy, they're really good. Now Sertan's not playing tonight, but they're really good on defense. I mean, you could make the case. Look, they're better to me. I thought Bo Nix had his best game last week in the fourth quarter. He had 145 quarterback
Yeah.
rating.
Garbage time.
It was garbage time. I get all that, but at least it gave him maybe some confidence to go into this week. Tonight, if he plays good tonight, if they win tonight, which they should win tonight. I mean, that look, they're playing an easy schedule. They're going to get the Raiders again. They're going to win that one, right?
They're going to get to 9. So I think I have Pittsburgh and the Chargers, and then I think I agree on Cincy that maybe they can sneak their way to 10. If they don't sneak to 10, then we're just going to have a 3-way 9-8, and nobody's going to be able to predict that.
But Cincy will beat Pittsburgh one of those games. I mean,
right.
And they should have beat Baltimore. They had Baltimore. They had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter against Baltimore. Yeah. We think Baltimore's a good team.
NFC much harder to figure out. I only have 3 teams that I'm positive will make the playoffs, and I'm not even positive on one of them. Detroit's 4-1. They're minus 450. I think they're the best team in the NFC. I've never wavered on that, even without Hutchinson. They have the most answers. They can block. They can do everything. San Francisco 3-3 at minus 280. This is more a division play to me. That Seattle would have to be the team that beats them. That would mean Seattle has to win in Atlanta this week just to even think about that, because their schedule gets harder. And I also think San Francisco kind of underachieved. I know they're 3-3, but they're really like a 4.5 win team that just won less.
I mean, they got a 10-point lead with Arizona. Their kicker tries to be a tough guy and hurts his ankle. Right, they turn the ball over in the fourth quarter there, and then the Rams, they give up a 10-point lead. Moody misses a field goal, and Bell drops a pass. Or else
don't forget the fake punt.
Yeah, and they're 5-1, right? So, I mean, I think the question about San Francisco, I don't know if they're the number 1 seed in the NFC, but they're going to make the playoffs. They shouldn't play. They should win the West, because the Rams are not good. I mean, how the Rams are a 6.5-point favorite against the Raiders should tell you everything you need to know. Like, how is that even possible? Like, the Rams should be 6.5 point better than Texas, but yet they are, because that's how bad the Raiders are. And then,
but Mike, the players wanted Antonio Pierce. They thought he deserved it.
And that's always worked, hasn't it?
You got to listen to the players.
You got to listen to the players.
The players know what's best. What do you need management for?
Arizona, to me, the biggest joke. Nobody wants to talk about Kyler Murray. Paying him all that money is a joke. It's a joke. It was right there in front of you. The owner probably wanted to do it. There's no way. Did you see him on the fumble when they fumbled in Green Bay on the handoff? He didn't even make any attempt to go get the ball. Like, he had no interest in even getting his uniform dirty. Like, of course, to me, that's one of those games where, did you see the Cardinals sideline? It was Green Bay. It's October. They had fucking wool hats on. They had heavy coats. Like, you just should have just gone right to the window and bet everything on fucking Green Bay. Like, they had no interest in being out there. So I don't see Arizona. I don't see Seattle, and I don't see the Rams. Like, I think San Francisco is by far. Now, I'm not saying San Francisco is a great team, but to me, they're the best of that team.
Right, so there's 2. I'm do something dramatic here. I'm putting Washington in at 4-2.
I think they are.
They have 7 home games left, Mike. They're 4-2 with 7 home games left. And the games, Carolina and Tennessee, they have home. There's 2 wins. Then they play Chicago, Pittsburgh, Dallas, Philly, and Atlanta. That's at least 3-2. I've already got to 9 wins. And they're on the road against the Giants, New Orleans, Dallas, Philly. They'll split the Dallas games, worst case scenario. They're a 10-win team to me.
I wrote this week they're the best team in the East because Philly can't play pass defense.
Yeah,
like they'll throw the ball all over on Philly, and they've done a really good job. Give Dan Quinn credit; the team's gotten better every week. Like I think Dallas is a joke. I don't think Dallas is a good team.
I'm not discussing. We're not discussing Dallas. Philly,
so, to me, it's Philly or Washington. It ain't the Giants, right?
No. Well, I think. The Giants had bad luck in a couple of those games, but losing Thomas and Thibodeau now, like it's not like they had a ton of guys to lose.
Plays to kick a field goal.
Yeah,
I mean, you're not beating anybody like that. The dink and dunk. I mean, neighbor. Even when they had neighbors, it was 16. I mean, they lost to the Cowboys at home.
Right.
I mean,
So
we don't think
Philly's
the
got
Cowboys are any good.
for hard games. Philly has at Cincy, home Dallas, Baltimore, Washington, home, and then that's road, and then home Washington, Pittsburgh. So there's a 9-8 world, and I don't like the Sirianni. I thought it was just a really, really weird week, and you're obviously tied into Philadelphia more than anybody. Like once it feels like it's past the point of no return from a
Oh,
weirdness
he
daily
crossed that
topic
line last
standpoint,
week.
right?
He crossed that line. He crossed that line. First of all, at what point is he going to grow up? Right. At
Yeah.
some point, you're the leader of the team. Show some maturity. Right. You're not some kid in a club. Maybe if you're spinning records with Mike, but I mean, you're not some kid in a club just trying to urge somebody on. You represent a franchise. You're bigger than that. Like you got to act mature. And then to bicker with the Philly fans. I mean, once they turn on you,
Great idea.
over. I mean,
Yeah.
it's over. I mean, you can't do that. And then he brings his kids to the press conference as a shield so that nobody asks him hard questions. Look, I love kids and dogs and movies, but at the reality, you can't bring them to the press conference when you got stuff like that going on. Like that's really stupid. Like I just think to me, he's too immature. He's been immature and he's got such a bad temper. He's got anger management issues that I think it really affects their team. And I know the players are saying they like him, but you know how that shit goes.
Yeah.
I mean, look, their defense is not good enough. They've had here's the thing that's interesting. They've scored no points in the first quarter this year. They scored 204 points in the second quarter 2 years ago. They played from in front that year. And Nick said to the media it's no big deal. We haven't scored in the first quarter. What do you mean it's no big deal? He only scored 41 points in the first half all year. The Packers have scored 90. And you played the Packers. So, to me, I think they have good on paper, but they're on paper. I'm disappointed in how they played, but a lot of it goes back to him.
I like kids, dogs, and movies. My actual Mike Lombardi quote. I would have thrown in The Sopranos, and I would have thrown in The Three Technique. Those are your 5 favorite things.
You
and
put
chicken
a dog
parmesan.
In a commercial. You put a dog in a commercial. The commercial is going to be a hit, right? You put a little kid in a commercial, it's a hit. It's a win. So when you bring your kid, the only thing he didn't bring to that press conference was his dog.
Minnesota playoff team to you? They're 5-0 already.
I think they are because here's why they play. You can't run the ball on them. They play in a dome. They're hard to beat there. They really are, and they do enough offensively. They know how to manage Darnold. He's due for a blow up game. We get that. I think they need Aaron Jones back. There's no question about that. But they're a good team.
They have Indies, Arizona, and Chicago all at home. They have road games at the Rams, Jacksonville, and Tennessee. And they play Chicago, Seattle, Detroit on the road. I don't see a path where they don't win 10.
Yeah,
this next team, you and I both really like this team, this Green Bay team. You talked about them a little bit earlier, but they're 4-2. Their easiest home games left are Miami, New Orleans, Chicago. They also get to play on the road against our guy, Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. Their schedule's a little tough, though. They have some hard games, but I believe in the talent with that team, and especially if they have all the receivers going. I think they're from a talent standpoint a top 5 or 6 team.
Well, look, I think anybody who's playing the AFC South this year, like the AFC North is, it helps you get 3 teams in.
Right.
I think it's because you're going to get those wins against those teams. I mean, you're going to beat Tennessee. You're going to beat Indy based on who they play at quarterback. Like this week, Miami, if they get Richardson, that's a good chance for them to win the game. If Flacco were playing, you wouldn't even consider taking. You would think they would win, right? It's the same. And then the only team you have to compete with is Houston. I mean, it's going to be a dumpster fire if Dougie doesn't win this week in London.
Right. Well, I don't know if I told you this, but when Sal and I did the pod on Sunday, we came up with the nickname Middle Seat Doug for Doug because we thought they're going to fire him and send him home, but not want to pay for a business class or even an aisle seat. So he was just going to be in row 33B. So then we decided his name was Middle Seat Doug. I know we're on your nickname corner with coaches. You're the creator of the Clapper and DJ Mikey Mack, but the disc jockey. But Middle Seat Doug's pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good. And I'll tell you why it's good because have you seen this new stadium they're building down in Jacksonville?
No.
It's really
I know they're building it. I haven't seen it, though. Is it like a Clippers arena
state of the art. It's $1.8 billion. You're not getting anybody to come see that Jacksonville team if they don't just change the organization. mean, that owner has really no choice but to change it. And hiring Ben Johnson ain't going to put people in those seats. You're going
Right.
to have to hire somebody that can come in there and win.
Well, I know you're too close to this to give an honest answer because you do a pod with them and you've been friends with them for 40 years. But the two city culture teams are Jacksonville and Vegas that are going to need a coach this one. And both of them feel very Belichicky to me.
Yeah,
And
but I
Dallas,
think
if
Vrabel in this thing too, though. You got to put Vrabel in it. Why wouldn't you hire Vrabel and let him run your program?
or Pete Carroll if he feels like he's got 3 years left. Those are just like big hires. Hey, we have this
Proven
guy now.
hires. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, look. I mean, if you want to look, they should go. I mean, how are you so bad you don't even talk? Like you're Carolina. You're so bad you don't even talk to Belichick or Vrabel last year.
it's pretty rough. Well, they had Dave Canales, been an offensive
Yeah.
coordinator for like a year and a half. So we have Green Bay and Minnesota in. So that's
Yeah,
3 teams. I'm not buying Chicago.
me
I'm
either.
very happy for them that they had those 3 good weeks in a row against really shit defenses week after week. I still have questions about how they're going to block. Um, I'm out. So let's figure out this Atlanta Tampa thing. Both of them are 4-2. They play each other at some point. Tampa's next 4: home Baltimore, home Atlanta, at Kansas City, home San Francisco. So they could be like 5-5 in 3 weeks. And Atlanta's schedule is a little easier, but I think we're aligned on this. I don't really like Atlanta. I feel like Atlanta got super lucky. To me, Atlanta is a 2-4 or 3-3 team that is somehow miraculously 4-2.
And look, they still can't rush the passer. They have Judon has 1.5 sacks. So does Garrett. They can't put pressure on the passer. So, and they're going to always be in close games, and those close games are going to go one way or the other, and they could tilt away from your direction. I think Tampa's the best team there. I think 10-7, 9-8 wins that. I would go with Tampa here. I know they have a hard schedule. As for the Bears, I mean the Bears have played against their strength of victory wins is 1.82.
Hmm.
I mean, that's not even that's the lowest by far. Their 4 wins have come against teams with a record. I think they have 4 wins total. So like they've beaten up on the bad teams, and credit them for doing it, and get credit Eberflus. But when they play against a good team with a good pass rush, they're going to have some trouble. There's no question.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I mean, Green Bay's better than Chicago. I don't think there's any. I think Philly's better than Chicago. So I don't see I would put Philly and Green Bay in the playoffs before I put Chicago.
Okay. So Detroit, San Francisco, Washington, Minnesota, Green Bay, one of Atlanta, Tampa. We'll say Tampa. And that leaves the last spot. Philly might sneak in somehow.
Yeah, I think Philly will. I think Philly's too good not to get in there, but they got to play better. They're 4-10 over the last 14 games. They got to play better, but they have enough players to play better if they're staying. But one thing about Philly, now they get out of shape. They're not as well conditioned team. As the longer the year goes, you worry about them. So I think Washington gets better. I think San Francisco will get better. Detroit keeps getting better. Look, Chicago's gotten better too, but
Yeah, it's hard to know how real
it's hard
it
to
is.
judge them.
We'll know. We'll know in 2 weeks. We
But
didn't mention
after that,
Seattle, by the way. Seattle's 3-3. If they somehow beat Atlanta, but their schedule is pretty brutal. The best thing is they have Arizona twice and they have the Rams twice, right? And the Rams might be a mess, but other than that, they're playing Buffalo, Green Bay, Minnesota, the Jets, San Francisco. It's tough.
but I think this week in a dome where they're playing perfect conditions, no pass rush, I think Geno will play well. I think
Me
this
too.
could be a 38-35 game. I think it could be a shootout.
All right, this for $1 million picks. I know you did the thing with Russo. I don't want to step on your picks, but I really like the slate this week.
Yeah,
The Eagles and the Giants. This Giants team, I feel like, has passed the point of no return with the injuries. The line right now, as we're taping this, is still Eagles -3.
I'm all over.
I don't understand it.
I don't get it either. I mean, to me, the value's not on the. I mean, look, I don't see it. I think the Eagles are the better team. Look, I'm looking at my board right now. At the Westgate, it's still 3. Now it's 3 -118. At Sportsbook, it's 3 -120. It's going to go to 3.5 by Sunday for sure.
Well, we're taking it now at 3.
Yeah,
So the Giants don't have their left tackle anymore, who's the best lineman they had. So now their
right.
line's in shambles. They don't have Thibodeau, so their pass rush isn't the same. They're on their backup kicker still. Neighbors coming back from the concussion, not even positive he's playing. Slayton's hurt. Like, here's the thing. If the Eagles lose this game, that's it for Sirianni. Like
Oh, it's
you
over.
have to, it's done. So there's a chance they quit on him, but I don't see any way they don't beat the Giants. It would
I
be
don't either.
one
And
of the worst losses of the year.
the Giants' strength is their defensive front. And the Eagles can block them.
Yeah.
The Eagles can block that front.
You mentioned,
I think when I put my numbers together, I thought this line was going to be 5. The line opened up at 5.5. The line before, the look ahead line was 5.5. But the Philly, I think people see problems in Philly's locker room.
yeah, well, pretty easy to see. I think we both like the Seahawks a little bit, +3 against Atlanta, because Seattle, I mean, they have the number 1 passing offense right now, right?
And look, I know Terrell got an interception last week, but I mean, Carolina was moving the ball on them. They was running the ball. They were moving the ball on them. I mean, that was a closer game than the score ended up. Look, I think Carolina is one of the worst teams I've seen in the last 5 years. I really do.
Wow.
And they're really bad. But to me, I don't see how they're going to win. I don't see how they're going to win a game. I don't see any way they can win a game. Forget covering a line. I don't see it. But to me, that they were playing with Atlanta. I think Atlanta's going to be in a lot of games that are going to come down to the final 8 minutes of the game, and they got to make a play here and make a play there. And they're fortunate that their kicker's so good and they play indoors.
So Atlanta, you mentioned the lack of pass rush. They're 28th in QB hits, 30th in QB hurries. Yeah. That's good for Seattle because they can't block.
And they're 32nd in passing defensive players in the draft.
Yeah. You haven't like what you see from Penix yet?
You got everybody wants to talk about, they got Drake London. I mean, Drake London's a nice player, but he's a good player, but he's not the 16th pick. He passed up good players for that.
How about Kyle Pitts? They give him the 140-yard play a game, and then he's just in the witness protection program after that.
And he can't block anybody. And you passed up. You could have picked Micah. You put Micah Parsons and Jalen Carter on this defense. What do you have?
Kyle Pitts is with Vito Spatafor and Johnny Cakes in New Hampshire.
Up in Booton. Yeah, he's up in that little New Hampshire town. Yeah, that's right.
All right, we both like Seattle. I'm going to guess you like the Packers -2.5 against Houston. This seems like a bad spot for Houston. Also, not a must-win game for them. No Nico Collins. And I like the spot for Green Bay. I think every week there's a team when after the week we go, those guys, they're fine. Or that team's really good. I think this is the week for Green Bay where we go, Green Bay, they're a contender.
I love Green Bay. You know what my problem is with this game?
What?
Scott Novak's doing the game.
Oh, no.
That really always worries me because he thinks people are driving to the stadium to see him. So you got to be really careful about that. But I think Green Bay matches up with them. Green Bay can win them. They can pass protect, which is critical. I think when you play Green Bay, that field really slows you down. You slip a lot on that grass field up there. And if you don't wear the right shoes, these guys don't want to wear the right shoes up there. They don't want to wear the 7-inch spikes. And I think if Love has time to throw, he'll make plays on this team. I mean, look, Indianapolis moved the ball opening day against them. There's teams that Minnesota moved the ball on them. I think that when they play on the road, they're just slightly a different team. There's the Scott Novak factor that you worry about that could go against Houston too. Now he can work both sides as well as anybody, but that's what worries me.
Do you think Arizona left some of the parkas and mittens for the Texans? Did they just leave behind? It's not going to be
as bad. But when I saw, he had one of those hats on like it's wintertime. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like, are you kidding me? It's
like in Russia. I don't understand the Lions-Vikings line at all, and I feel like it's a trap. It's the Vikings are favored by 1.5. There's no Aaron Jones. It feels like a Hutchinson overreaction. I just think Detroit's better. Detroit beat them twice last year. I don't understand it. I don't know why isn't this Lions -3?
I don't know why that is. I have no idea. I mean, I know Hutchinson's hurt, but to me, I think Minnesota. Now it's hard to play there, but Detroit's won there. Detroit's so physical, and Detroit ran the ball on them last year. So look, I think Detroit's a good team. I think this is a step up. Minnesota's not going undefeated. I hate to break the news to anybody. They're not going undefeated. If they're going to lose a game, this could be the one they lose.
Well, this will be the corniest thing I say to you on the pod, but you work for many football teams, so there's some truth to it. So they lose Hutchinson last week. Football teams, this Lions team seems super close, and this feels like we won this for Hutchinson. This was for him. game ball, like the whole. I don't know. I
Well, they
think that
rallied
injury
around him.
really impacted them, and I think I don't know. I just believe in that stuff
Well, their
sometimes.
locker room's good. And look, that like they could trade for a Josh Uche. He's available. They could
Yeah,
put him in Hutchinson. They could put him in a role that Hutchinson. That's what I would do. I would find somebody like Uche. Somebody that's a rusher that's maybe not a starter on a team that could come in and fill that role. I'm sure if Cleveland loses, they could get Smith from the outside rushers, Darius Smith. They could put him in that role. I mean, they're going to be able to fix this problem with somebody to come in and just play that specific role.
right.
And they could get better doing that. I mean, we did that in New England. I mean, we got Akeem Ayers, we got Akeem Hicks, we got Castile. You just fill players. They're not perfect, but they fit what you need, and they can help you win situations.
Maybe they could get the guy committing the worst contract holdout since Le'Veon Bell, Hassan Reddick, just
I think it's
setting money on
mostly
fire every week.
Yeah, Woody said he gave him permission to trade him. Like, who wants your problem, Woody? Like, seriously, who wants to take your? Oh, I got it, Woody. I'm going to give you a draft pick to take your problem on. You already did that.
Hassan Reddick's like Sly Stallone in Cliffhanger when he's burning the $100 bills to stay warm at night. It's like, woo! Look at this fire from
It's
the
the dumbest
$100 bills.
That's why the agent fired him. I mean, the agents fired him. I was told that he was going in week 1. I think the agents fully expected him to go in week 1. And then the father got involved, and that was it.
Detroit's offense, by the way, 4th pass, 4th run, third yards per play, 2nd first down, 1st scoring. Like, they're a juggernaut. I think they win. Steelers, Jets, stay away, or would you play this one?
I think I have no faith in playing Russell or Justin Fields in the game. I think they turn it over. I don't have any faith in the Jets. I think it's a stay away. I think the first play will go to Devontae Adams. But, I mean, I think one thing I learned about Mike Tomlin, I mean, he's good in these close games. He loves them. They just live for him.
We have Craig Horlbeck, who works for us, who's a huge Steelers fan, and his theory was that the Steelers were doing too well. Tomlin needs the heat from a 500 record to stay alive, basically. So that's why they blew that game 2 weeks ago. He needs to be somewhere where they're not doing too well, but they're also doing better than 500, somewhere in there. Yeah. He needs close games. He just needs to feel the energy and the rush of just being nervous.
I mean, the guy loves. I mean, I think last week he's probably disappointed.
Right. He's like, I thought this game was going to be closer. Ravens Bucks. I was thinking about a Ravens money line play, lowering the overdown. I don't understand how Tampa's going to stop the Ravens ever for 3 hours. I don't see a scenario where they come close.
Yeah, and is Mike Evans going to play? I think that's the real question, right? I think that's the one we have to look at. If Evans, I mean, let me see it here. I think he's they've got a bunch of injuries. They've got a bunch of injuries on the team, but I don't see Evans. I thought he was going to be out. But, I think to me, that's the one thing that would worry me, whereas Baltimore's really healthy.
Tampa's D's 26th on first down, 26 first downs. And
they're going to struggle. I mean, look,
Baltimore's
Tampa,
first in like everything.
Look, they beat Detroit. Detroit moved the ball down the field on them. I mean, they're going to struggle in this game. Baltimore's pesky enough to give Baker Mayfield some trouble. I would lean Baltimore here. The game I like the Chargers versus
that was my last one. Chargers -1.5 in Arizona.
I don't know why the line's moving. At 1.5, you're getting a good number. Right now at Westgate, it's 2.5. So you're getting a great number.
Yeah, the Zona's D is 32nd on first downs, 29th against the run, 27th yard per pass. They also fit your theory of the team that started out pretty well, but is getting worse every week.
Yeah.
Which is never a good sign when we get to week 7.
No, not a good sign. And their quarterback has, if you know how to rush him, like if you don't do what the Rams did against him, which is just run up the field and run past him, he looks like he's sensational. But if you keep him in the pocket like Cincinnati did, Cincinnati's not even a good team and they beat him. Like to me, Arizona, beating San Francisco was a miracle. It really took everything had to go right, and they did. Yeah. But it's hard to do that.
Hey, you're old enough to remember the Spassky Fisher chess matchup from the early 70s, right? I know you were into that.
In Finland,
Is Mayo versus Middle Seat Doug? Is it bringing back memories of that for you in London? No.
Can Mayo put his cap on right? Was like, is that cap like? It was bothering me the whole game.
Have you seen Mayo talk to an assistant or a player during these games yet?
No. No, Mayo he's programmed to blame Bill for everything. He's like, he's just programmed. Even though we signed every single player
Yeah.
back, right? Wait a minute, this is your team.
Well,
Look,
listen, they couldn't. They were gonna whoever won the quarterback battle, whoever outperformed the other guy in training camp was gonna get the job. Then 5 weeks later, Drake gets the job, and they're like, "Yeah, we couldn't start him right away because the offensive line." It's like you're directly contradicting what you said in the summer. This is why Belichick never said anything in press conferences. You can't win.
yeah, and then their defense has gotten worse, Bill. They're not getting
Oh yeah.
better. I mean, they were good opening day, and they've gotten progressively worse. Nobody talks about because everybody's focused on the quarterback. But how about Polk? He comes out today when Mayo said he needs some mental help. Like Polk is like, what are you talking about? I'm fine mentally. I need to. My hands are good. Like he came out and complained. Like to me, look, these guys are getting head coaching jobs with because they're ex players. We're not the NBA.
Yeah.
Like it's a bigger enterprise than managing 8 or 7 players. It's a different world. It's a more complex game. It's chess on grass. I'm not dismissing the NBA coaches because that's a hard job, but in the NBA, if you play in the NBA, you play offense and defense. So you know everything about the game. You know the game completely. In the NFL, if you play off, I mean, Mayo, he can pretend he knows offense. He doesn't know any techniques of what the line does. He doesn't know the receivers. He knows what the plays are. He doesn't know the fundamentals and techniques. He doesn't know the whole game. How could he? He's only been coaching 5 years. So it's harder. It's a harder game to really know. And then a kicking game. And then the front office and how you have to develop talent. That's a whole other element. So, but look, they've got Jonathan there to help handle it and Robin Glazer to help handle it. We'll see. I mean, and all they keep doing is they're so preoccupied with attacking Bill. Like the guy won 6 Super Bowls for you. At what point do you stop attacking the guy?
I can't tell you what a turnoff it is as a guy who loves the Patriots. I don't understand why they're handling it this way. And then for Mayo to say how they asked if he'd heard from Belichick since he got the job, and he said no, and people are like, whoa. And it's like, and then Kraft says later, I knew Mayo was going to be our coach when we were in Israel 7 years ago or whatever. It's like,
he was meeting with him.
Everyone knew he was going to be the next head coach, and he was working on the staff.
They were having meetings during the season last year. Like Mayo was late for staff meetings because he was meeting with Kraft. Everybody knew it. Like they knew it was all just, it's a charade. But they can control the narrative because they have.
Well, they're doing a bad job. I don't think they're controlling any narrative anymore. I think this is a catastrophe of a year for the Crafts. I really do.
Yeah.
Starting with that documentary, how they handled Belichick's exit, how the team they put together, the fact that they have $50 million in free agency money that they just never spent, and the team's the worst offensive line anyone's ever put out.
They're the lowest spending team in the last 10 years. Nobody says a word about it. Like they've never, the one thing about the Cleveland Browns, they've spent a lot of money. The Crafts over the last 10 years are the least amount of spending money of anybody. It's documented. It's not fake news. I'm not making that up. It's real.
Well, here's the other thing. You always talk about having a plan. They knew they were taking May in the draft. They knew they were getting Watts. They knew they were getting Daniels or May, right? They knew this the moment the season ended. And then it was about studying them, who's Washington going to take. But if it's May, we're taking them. How do you not have a plan for an offensive line or some sort of stability in front of them so you can actually play him? They go into the season and people are like, well, who are they going to sign? It's like, well, Washington went and got a couple guys that they overpaid for a little bit, but Washington didn't have an offensive line either. They patched together something that was at least workable. They addressed it. I just don't understand how you have an asset like May and then you bring him Alex Van Pelt in the worst offensive line possible and just this hodgepodge of young receivers, and they're like, this is great. This would be a good year one for our guy. It's fucking stupid.
It really is. And they had as much chance to do whatever they could do. And then they signed everybody back that Bill had, and they complained that Bill, Kraft's talking about he gave him too much authority. Well, you just signed every one of the players he drafted back. And so if you're complaining about what you gave him in the draft, then why'd you sign all those guys back?
And by the way, you think Calvin Ridley was going to make a difference this year? We need people who can block.
Yeah, exactly right. They had no left tackle.
Ayuk was going to help.
They had no left tackle. They had no right tackle. They signed that kid from Pittsburgh, and then he just quit on them. And you're signing a lineman from Pittsburgh. I mean, shit, you're not in any good shape. I mean, that's the problem.
The guy they signed off the practice squad 2 weeks ago started at center last week. They said he had like the best game anyone's had on the offensive line this year. They found him in the scrap heap.
So to me, they're so preoccupied with taking credit
Yeah.
for what happened in the past that they're not worried about their future. Like, let it go. Like, it's really kind of disappointing that the guy can win as much as he won, and you have this much anger towards him. It's like he stole. Like, did he steal $12 billion from you? Your franchise just went from you paid 240 million, now it's worth 8 billion, 9 billion. I mean, really? Do you think that was only because of you built Patriot Place? I mean, why do you
Well,
think that was?
we learned from the documentary that if it wasn't for Kraft to navigate the Brady Belichick relationship, the thing would have fallen apart 10 years earlier.
Right. But here's the funny thing. Now we're finding out that now that Brady is the part owner of the Raiders, he wants to hire Belichick. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Right.
now we're finding that out. Like, so what's true? Like, right. Is Robert going to come to the Oakland and navigate the relationship too? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking.
The issue with Brady and Belichick was Alex Guerrero. Like, that was it. It's
That was
like
it.
you
That
can
was
say whatever
exactly
you
what it
want,
was.
but it was fundamentally he wanted special treatment for his guy that could come in and treat him differently, and he was pulling other teammates into it. And Belichick, whether he was right or wrong, Belichick felt like this isn't the kind of team I want to have where one guy gets treated differently. We've never operated that way,
That's
and they
right.
never saw eye to eye on it. Kraft had nothing to do with it.
Nothing at all. That's exactly what happened. That was the only sticking point of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
Other
that's
than
and
that,
that
they were
and it
together
was
20 years. They won six Super
it
Bowls. They
splintered
made
the
9.
team. It splittered the team. And he believed in stretching and all that. And Bill wanted teams to do squats and all these lifts. And it's like Gronk came back and he was doing the Alex program. He had no lower body strength. They had to get him back in shape. So I mean, there was a conflict of that. And so Tom wasn't the head coach, but he had his guy. But he was trying to bring other people into it. And
Yeah.
they got. I never really saw this hostile relationship that's being portrayed that had to be patched together. And the fact is, look, if Kraft wanted to sign him, he could have signed him. I mean, if he just said, "Bill, I'm giving Brady 40 million. You're just going to have to deal with it." Like, that's just a cop out to blame somebody.
Totally agree. Do you agree with my theory that Brady would come back if one of the quarterbacks on either Detroit or San Francisco or Kansas City got hurt?
No, I think he can't now because he's an owner, and he'd have to go through the waiver wire, and there's no way. I think it's over. I think this is officially over with. He can't be Hyman
So
Roth.
him being the part-time owner has officially closed the door.
Close the door completely. He can't be Hyman dying from the same heart attack over and over again. This is it. He's done. So I think that's it. The interesting thing is how much influence he's going to have in Las Vegas, because he should have some. I would love to watch him. I would love to stand next to him at the first practice, watching Antonio Pierce lead the Raiders and seeing that program. I mean, he's going to be like, oh my God. I mean, I just signed up for this.
That would be fun. That would be a way better use of TV time with him than having him announce games. Just his face during a 2-hour Antonio Pierce
watching
practice.
that. Yeah, Antonio. So tell me, what are you thinking about doing in the game? I mean, I would love that conversation.
Oh my God. All right. Philadelphia 76ers
Yeah.
over 50.5 wins, and House and Russillo and I all went under. Russillo did a little monologue about he's just done with this whole narrative around the team. They did a great job putting it back together, but he just can't take it anymore. It was pretty funny. You reached that point 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, what was proven this summer in the Olympics was I don't care what you put around the guy, it's hard to play with the guy.
Yeah.
I think that was proven. So you can say, look, I think the guy's enormously talented. I'm not going to deny that. But he has none of the qualities that great players have that win championships. And nobody's going to argue that with me or tell me anything different. The fact that he openly comes out and says, I'm not playing back to back. See, this whole idea that we just want to get to April healthy, that's been their whole program ever since. Like, it's like they're saying shit that they've been saying for 4 years. It's just never worked. Here's the thing. Iron on iron makes you stronger. So the more you play, the stronger you become. It's not the other way. It's not the less you play, the stronger you become. And so, like this, he's going to get hurt in April. I mean, Russillo is right. I'm going to listen to it. I haven't yet, but he's right to not believe anything they say. And they have this older team now, and they've built everything around a guy who can't stay healthy. It's just fact. I mean, look, I don't care. Finally, he announced he lost 20 pounds. I mean, it's 9 years too freaking late.
So on the one hand, going glass half full, he at least realizes I need to be better shape. I need to put less weight on my knees. The playoffs are what really matters. That's the glass half full version of this. These are all realizations we had been asking for a few years from him.
But Danny Green, I had him on my show, and Danny Green said it's not so much that he's not in shape to start the season, it's keeping him in shape
Hmm.
because he doesn't practice, because he doesn't play in all the games. And I doubt if he's working on the elliptical or in an high altitude room where he could stay in shape because he's pedaling a bike in 6,000 feet, like, the Tour de France, so he can keep his breathing up. I don't think he's doing that. I think he just doesn't play and he keeps getting out of shape. And when he comes back, he's exhausted.
Yeah, I thought he seemed really slow to the ball,
Oh, of
protecting the
course.
boards again in that Knicks series and in the Olympics, where it just felt like everybody on the other team on every offensive rebound was getting to the ball before he was, which is usually a sign you're starting to hit a different point of your career as a center. But he's still putting up massive stats, so I don't know what to think with him. But if he's going to not play back to
Oh, he's
backs
always going
anymore,
to put up
that's
massive
an
stats,
under.
but he's like, to me, it's like you got to evaluate him against the level of comp.
Yeah.
Like he bullies people around and puts up these incredible games. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, does he help the team win? Does he make the players around him better? That's what a true great player does. He makes the players around him better. So you can convince yourself. Michael Jordan made Scotty Williams a better player, so the Sixers gave him money and thinking he was a good player when he
Right.
sucked. That's the great player does for other players, right? He doesn't do that. I mean, what player leaves Philly that gets a massive contract because Embiid made him a better player? You haven't found one.
So you're already out.
Oh, I would bet that under tomorrow. To me, I wouldn't even have to think about it because here, I do a radio show here in Philly, and Spike Eskin, who's a huge process guy, and he's like, "You're just a hater." No, I'm not a hater. I'm a realist. I know where this movie's going to end up. I've seen it for 9 years, and it's organizationally problem. There's no work ethic within the building. Maxey has it because Maxey's a unique guy. I mean, Paul George is already hurt. Look, I think Daryl Morey deserves a ton of credit for revamping the team. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But where I think he's wrong and flawed is he's building around a team that's going to crumble because the guy he's building around will crumble.
We will see. I agree, but who knows? Basketball can surprise us from time to time. I feel like durability is a pretty good indicator with the title. We've really only seen Kawhi in Toronto that one year when he
Yeah, and now he's
miraculously
hurt
stayed
again. Now he's
healthy.
out indefinitely, and they just built this new arena, and he's out indefinitely. Look, here's the reality: past performance predicts future achievement. That's the reality, and that's what we're dealing with. Past performance predicts future achievement, and the past performance is he doesn't have one.
What's your Super Bowl pick right now? Revised week 7?
I would say I think it's Detroit versus Baltimore. How's that?
Okay.
I think they're the two best teams.
I have Detroit and Kansas City.
There you go.
I mean, that's basically chalk, but I can't move off that unless Baltimore fix their defense. So
Yeah.
we'll see. All right, Mike Lombardi, you can listen to him on the GM Shuffle. He's all over the place. You've probably seen him. Plus, you have promote the Belichick Pod.
Well, that's Coach Pod, so you get that. That's a podcast, and it's also on the Coach YouTube channel. So we do that every Monday. We do the podcast with Matt, Patricia, and Coach, and then on Tuesday we tape the Coach Show, where we kind of look at college players. This week we looked at all the players at Alabama and Georgia, and then we talk about the National Football League, about what's going on and all that. So yeah, it's really been a lot of fun to do that up there, and we do it at NFL Films, which is great.
So Sopranos. What character is Matt Patricia on that show as the third guy?
That's
Is he like a
okay.
Silvio?
Yeah. No. I think, well, there's a role. There's a little bit of Silvio in that. I think he's probably more like
Bobby Bacala?
No, he's more like the guy who was advising Phil Leotardo that ended up.
Yeah.
He's more that guy. He says, "Look, I agree in spirit, but I have to counsel." I think he's that guy. I forget his name. It's not Butchie. Oh, but
I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Phil Leotardo's consigliere.
Yeah, he's that guy. Where Butchie was more. But I agree in spirit, but I have to counsel. He has one of the great lines in it too. When he says to some guy says to him, he says, "That Bobby Bacala, he's the number 3 guy," and he says, "Yeah, 3 years ago you were selling fucking laser printers on the back of your Crown Vic." That guy.
Do you think Carmela should have dated more? I mean, she really only had one dalliance, and then she's like, I guess I'm back with Tony.
Oh God, yeah.
Maybe they needed internet dating back then. She needed to go at least on one Tinder date or something.
I mean, can you imagine she's going to the paint shop to find her date? I mean, seriously, the guy with the bad hairpiece. I mean, come on,
Oh my
I
God.
do better than that. And then she was some professor. I mean, you got to do better than that.
I told the guy who runs HBO, I was like, it's way too hard to find The Sopranos in the It should be. I don't care if it came out 20 years ago. It should be the first thing in the top left when I go to HBO before Penguin, all the shows. The
Have you watched
Sopranos should be
Penguin? Have
first.
you been watching
I heard
Penguin?
it's good.
It's really good. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, I've watched 4 episodes. It's good. It's really, you never know. I mean, they've changed. I forget the name of the guy who stars in it, but
Colin
it's really
Farrell. Yeah.
Colin Farrell. That's right. But you never recognize him. But it's really good. It's a little dark in the sense of the lighting and all, but it's really good.
Michael Lombardi, great to see you.
Great. Thank you, Bill.
All right. Last but not least, the $1 million picks for week 7. Last week, I don't know how we didn't go 5-1. I don't understand it. We ended up losing 19K. We're down 417 for the season. Had like weirdly bad luck, but I feel like we're circling around the right results. I didn't feel bad about any pick, even Giants Bengals Sunday night. I feel like we're a big week's coming. Maybe it's this week. We're going 7 games this week. We talked about a bunch of them with Mike Lombardi already. The first one, Eagles -3 against the Giants. Giants lost their left tackle. They lost one of their best pass rushers. Best 2 wide receivers banged up. And the Eagles, here's the thing. If they don't win this game, changes galore will happen. This is weirdly a must win. Just take care of business against the Giants. Eagles -3, throwing the ball. This is a talent disparity game. So we're taking the Eagles. Packers -2.5 at home against the Texans. The Packers have been home 2 weeks in a row. No Nico Collins for the Texans. I think this is the week that we start regarding the Packers as a real contender. I think this is a breakout week for them. So Packers -2.5, we're grabbing that. Lions at Minnesota +110 for the Lions just to win. I don't care about the Lions +1.5. I don't understand the line. I don't understand why this isn't Lions -3. I know Hutchinson got hurt. I also think there's some let's win this for Hutchinson potential, but the Lions offense is the best offense in the league. They won in Minnesota twice last year. I think the line should be Lions -3. So I'm grabbing the Lions +110 money line. And by the way, the Vikings have to lose at some point this season. So there's 3. Seahawks at Atlanta. Seahawks are +3. I think they either push this or they win outright because Atlanta's defense stinks. And Atlanta easily could have 2 less wins. And Seattle can throw the ball. The Kenneth Walker's healthier. I just think this is a must win for them. They'd be 3-4 with a really tough schedule ahead. And I like the spot for them. I think they're going to be able to move the ball up and down the field. By the way, Geno has basically been a fantasy monster this year. I think he has the most pass attempts by far. Geno's winging the ball around this year. So we're going to ride Geno in Atlanta. Seahawks +3. The Chargers, who I'm buying as a stealth playoff team. How the hell is this team 10-7? They are laying 1.5 points in Arizona, a team that seems like they're just getting worse every week. And then every month they play well once and then they're worse again. I just like the spot for the Chargers. Well-coached team. I love their defense. I think you can make a case they might be in the running for best defense in the AFC. Chargers -1.5. This game will be -3 by game time. So grab the -1.5 now. And then the last 2. So Chiefs +1.5 against the 49ers. And everyone's going to tease this. Everyone's going to go nuts in all these different ways. And you know what? Mahomes is 11-1-1 as an underdog. I trust the infrastructure. I trust the defense. If I lose with Mahomes as an underdog, so be it. Brady used to be in this spot once upon a time. 49ers have injuries everywhere. We don't know when McCaffrey's coming back. As much as I like Brock Purdy, I think the Chiefs defense can handle this game and Mahomes will do just enough. They'll be able to move the ball just enough. This just Andy Reid coming off a bye week. I get a million different reasons why this looks too obvious on paper and why this seems like it's a trick line. I can't resist. Chiefs +1.5. And then the last one, sometimes on FanDuel, you can move stuff around. They have little alternate spreads. The Ravens are -2.5, -3.5 in Tampa. I'm going to nudge that down to -2.5. I'm going to nudge the over on FanDuel down to 39.5 as a parlay. So Ravens -2.5, the game will have at least 40 points, which, by the way, it will, because both these offenses are going down in the field. And if you do that, that's minus 105 on FanDuel. So that's my featured bet for the week. And then if you want to get nuts with the London game, I'm not making this an official $1 million pick, but I do think the Pats are going to be able to move the ball against Middle Seat Doug and the Jags. And I was looking at Pats adjusted plus 10.5 parlayed with the over of 40.5. That's plus 143 on FanDuel. I might do that when I wake up on Sunday morning just for the hell of it. But I think with Drake May, I think the Pats are going to have explosive plays. And not going to have turnovers, which is also good for the over. But I have a feeling they're going to hang around in this Jags game and that this is going to be it for Doug Peterson. So, hey, speaking of Pats Jags, FanDuel has an anytime touchdown scorer prop, 30% profit boost on that if you put that in. Hunter Henry scored last week with Drake May. He is plus 330 against Middle Seat Doug in London and the Jaguars. And I really like that one because I think there's going to be a little Drake May, Hunter Henry bromance. I foresee some Drake May production in both ways. Touchdowns, maybe a pick. Just be ready for a lot of Drake May variants. But I think Hunter Henry will be the beneficiary of at least some of it. So there you go. Drake May to Hunter Henry for a touchdown. Plus 330. And by the way, it doesn't even have to be Drake May. It could be he could run it in. Maybe he's playing running back. That's it. Those are the $1 million picks for week 7. And if you missed the big NBA over-under podcast that me and Russillo and Joe House did, here's what we did. I'm just going to recap it for you one more time. Oklahoma City over-under was 57.5. All three of us went over on that. House went under as a lock on Denver under 50.5. Russillo went under on New Orleans under 45.5. Houston over 42.5. Russillo and House both went over. San Antonio under 35.5. House and I went under on that. All three of us love Phoenix over 47.5, which is apparently the most popular future of the year. I'm not scared by that. Clippers under 37.5. I jumped on that as a lock. And now it was announced that Kawhi's out at least for opening night and probably a few weeks after that. So sad to hear that news. But on the other hand, that was one of the reasons I picked the under because I didn't think he was going to be playing. Cleveland over 48.5. Joe House and I jumped on that. Toronto under 29.5. Not only did Russillo take the under as a lock, he said some disparaging things about Toronto's planning that we wholeheartedly agreed with. Orlando over under 47.5. I went over. Russillo went over. Atlanta over under 36.5. I went over. House went over. And then last but not least, I was alone on this. I couldn't believe it. Washington under 20.5. Just me going under on that. Feeling great about it. So we did really great the last 2 years on those. Last 2 years, I went 12-2. House went 7-4. And Russillo went 9-2. I'm 18-4 on the locks for the last 3 years. So we'll see how they do. You can find all of them on FanDuel, and we're going to be doing a very special, a bunch of bets that you can find when you go on FanDuel, including the Super Boost, which I mentioned at the top, which is going to be OKC, 55-plus wins, Cleveland, 45-plus wins, Phoenix, 45-plus wins. All three of those to hit, which is around plus 190. They're going to boost that up past plus 250. We've won that 3 years in a row. And this year we're going for number 4. So you can follow all that. Go check out FanDuel. They have all this stuff. Thanks, Kyle Crane, for producing. Thanks to Steve Cerruti for producing. Thanks to Mike Lombardi. And I will see you on Sunday with Cousin Sal. Enjoy the weekend.